The thing about ballot initiatives is that they circumvent the state legislature. Now, in Utah, we have a trustworthy state legislature. They're honest, they're reliable, they're competent, but more importantly, they're accountable to the people, not just for the one issue, but for all the issues that deal with the budget and administration of the state. When you get a ballot initiative, often the people that are bringing that have it's a pet issue for them, and they don't have to think about the fiscal or social implications of that ballot initiative. They just want to get what they want. And in the state legislature, I know they act slowly, and there's a place for ballot initiatives, but the benefit of the state legislature making those decisions is that they deliberately go through those issues, they find out what's at stake, and they make a good and informed decision. The ballot initiatives that are on the ballot this year, there's some things that I really want to see some action on from the state legislature, but I would much prefer that they happen at the state legislature and not as straight ballot initiative. When we talk about the future of rural Utah, and especially when people ask me questions, usually what they're asking is, what is our existence going to look like? Or are we going to be able to stay in rural Utah? And all those things revolve around our jobs, our schools, the water, the cattle, the wildlife, those things that have become, the heart and soul of rural Utah. When decisions are made by people who don't have a vested interest, that's a threat to a person's very existence in rural Utah, and it's understandable why it would be an emotional issue for them and why they would be threatened by decisions that are being made not by their elected representatives but by coercion of some of these big moneyed special interest groups, the Patagonias and the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance and Conservation Lands Foundation. When these entities weigh in and appear to have leverage on something that is going to affect not your recreation but your very livelihood, those things are really important. So the future of rural Utah should be what the people in rural Utah decide it should be. They should have a voice. They're in the best position to manage these resources, especially these common pooled resources, the decisions about which affect them more than they affect anybody else. That's a question that it makes me feel bad that we even have to ask the question, because the state is the people. In the 10th Amendment it says that the powers not delegated to the federal government are reserved to the state or to the people. So questioning whether the state is a better steward really is questioning our own management of this. You don't find people questioning whether their decision to raise their kids a certain way is better than somebody else's decision. Yet when we talk about public lands and the land within the boundaries that define the state of Utah or define our specific counties, you find outside interest groups coming in and saying, we have as much say over this land as you do because it's federal land. Well, it still is within the boundaries of our counties, it's within the boundaries of our states, and of course the state is going to make better decisions. Representative decisions, decisions that come from the people up to their commissioners, up to their state representatives, whatever path that follows, it's got to be the people who are the sovereigns, the people that make these decisions and decide the management and the use of those public lands. So yes, the state is a much better steward than the federal government. When we talk about, again, the state management, it's unfortunate there are some bad apples at the state level in some of the agencies, some of the politicians. So I understand why people, when they look at some of the decisions that are being made that affect them negatively, that they might lose faith in the state as well. That shouldn't be the case. The state should clean up their act. If there's bad employees, they should be fired. If there's good employees, they should be rewarded, they should be retained. If we could incentivize those working in government at all levels, state on down, they would do a better job. People would be more inclined to trust them. It bothers me when public servants act like they don't trust the people that they serve. That should never be the case. They should recognize that their boss is the people, and the people have a say over how things are managed. One of the main roles of government is to balance services with the taxes that they have to charge to provide those services. Again, the people demand a certain level of service. They should be willing to pay a certain level of tax. What bothers me is when we start to see taxes that discourage production, that punish the producers. One thing we know for sure, if you punish production, you're going to get less production. If you reward non-production, you're going to get less production. Taxes can reach that point of diminishing returns. On the other side, services can reach the point of diminishing returns. We need to balance those things, and that's a key role of the state legislature. They're in the right position to look at the services, to listen to their constituents, to hear the issues. They know what the budget is coming in. They can help to balance those budgets, and Utah does a fantastic job of that. We run a tight budget. At the end of the day, I'm going to be a legislator that wants businesses to be productive. I believe that's the solution to our tax problems, is a more productive, more vibrant and flourishing economy. Well, first of all, I'm glad that my name is associated with roads. Some great commissioners have stood up for the roads because they understand the importance of those roads. As Bill Redd and Bill Howell used to say, and they wrote the book Statehood, the roads are the veins and arteries of our counties. They really do support our economies. And I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to close a road than it is to build a road. And the people that built those roads did it deliberately with a lot of effort, a lot of time and money that went into those things. And they shouldn't be closed down with an ulterior motive. The environmental community, they understand how important these roads are as well, which is why they target on those roads. They want to turn our counties into a playground, and they can do that by closing our roads, closing our access. State legislators have got to stand up for the counties, for their constituents. They've got to defend these roads because they are extremely important. Well, the mission of the state legislature should be to protect the interests of their constituents against federal encroachment or against any other thing that's going to take away their liberties. You know, each year the state legislature meets and they pass hundreds of laws, thousands of new laws and regulations. Some of those really do make our lives better. They provide more liberty and more freedom, but a lot of them take away our liberties. They license things that shouldn't be licensed. The state legislature, as Alexander Hamilton said, should be not only vigilant, but should be jealous and suspicious guardians of the liberties of the people against federal encroachment. And if the state legislature will do that, they will be doing a huge service to their constituents and to the state. No success in government or in business can compensate for failures in our homes and our communities. Ultimately, the state legislature serves people. They serve families. They serve communities. If they're serving anybody besides that, then they've lost track of who they should be serving. You get these big-moneyed special interest groups that come in and try to sway the legislature with scheming and lying and coercion and intimidation. That shouldn't happen. And a state legislator has got to be willing to stand up to that kind of pressure and do the right thing for the people of his district. Ultimately, at the end of the day, this is about people, and every state legislator should be able to say that their interest is the people. Well, you can tell a lot about a business or about a state from looking at their financial statements. And bottom line is, Utah is a pretty great state. They run a tight budget. We have a great legislature that is fiscally conservative. Our cash exceeds our short-term obligations by about 3 times, which is great. Our liabilities are about 15% of our total assets. If you were a business, you'd be saying this is a very well-run state. The Mercatus Center at George Mason University just published a study last week that shows that Utah is in extremely good health. And more importantly, they're getting better. Not only are they doing well, but they're getting better each year. And that is largely due to the conservative nature of the citizens of this state. But their elected representatives are doing a great job. And one thing that I think I bring to the legislature is that ability to look at things objectively by looking at the numbers and crunching the financial statements, and you can learn a lot by doing that. You know, whether you're in rural Utah or on the Wasatch Front, roads are a major concern. We all know that the demand is increasing, the traffic is increasing. Nobody likes to be stuck in traffic. We don't have that problem in rural Utah as much here on the Wasatch Front, but the concerns are the same. Is how do you pay for this growing infrastructure that is going to be required, especially as our economy develops and this transportation becomes more important. And for me, the answer is not to raise taxes. The answer is to go back to the things that built those roads in the first place. You know, extraction industries get a bad rap, but extraction is what has built this state. When you go out on a back road in rural Utah, chances are you're going on a mining road or a seismograph road or something that was built by an extractive industry. These things are important. I would love to see Utah be responsible about extraction, benefiting the families that work in those industries, and more importantly, providing the resources that will help to fund our roads in the future. So often, people will come up with a tax, trying to present it as the solution to something. Rarely is the solution to just give somebody a new tax. It's kind of like taking the cupcake off the table and replacing it with a horse turd and saying, here, you should be happy with that. This new gas tax is not going to help in the long term. It's not sustainable, and we can find better ways to pay for our schools than a gas tax. We can certainly find better ways to pay for our roads than increasing a gas tax. PILT, payment in lieu of taxes. To me, PILT is also, it's another one of those decoys that says, hey, rather than producing, what if the federal government just gives you money? And after a while, the counties become dependent on that payment. They start fighting for PILT when what they should be fighting for is their land, access to their land, jobs for their people, jobs for their communities. PILT it's like a flaxen cord that's around the neck of the people, and when the federal government decides that they are tired of dealing with them, they turn it off. They pull on that cord. And there's no excuse for a county to be coming to the federal government with their hat in their hand asking for payment in lieu of taxes when what they really want is jobs. They want to work, they want to be productive, and PILT provides a way for that not to happen and appeases the people that should be out trying to create a vibrant economy. My experience with PILT, looking at it, and don't get me wrong, PILT is a really important funding source since the counties can't tax the federal land. And in my district, we're talking about counties that have 97% public land, 95% public land. They become so dependent on PILT for their budgets, and they end up basically, like I say, going to the federal government hat in hand, asking for what they should never have to ask for in the first place.